streets are blocked off there. So think of all the people that are affected by this situation as we wait to see if the suspect is alive or going to be taken into custody, how this all ends or plays out. Alex, we see some movement there with the light. Looks like some officers there on the ground within the property, or is that a resident?
What we have seen so far tonight, Christine, is some of these officers moving out some of the nearby residents, including an elderly disabled person, to try to get them out before there could be a potential second confrontation with this suspect, and try to make sure that everybody is safe, because this, could potentially be in the middle of crossfire depending on what happens in the next few hours. Getting some more information from what our sources are telling us, and if you didn't hear this earlier, we'll repeat it. The thought is, or sources telling Fox 11, that all this started with the narcotics unit observing a suspect, a felony suspect, in an alley. They requested units for arrest. The suspect went back into his home, where we believe this is. Perimeter was set up. Canine unit was set up, police dog. Canine officers made their way back to the residence. They located him in a small room at the bottom of the main residence, what may be a garage. Called him out. He wouldn't leave. They used beanbag rounds. That didn't work. They used CS gas. And at that point, the guy came out and shot at the officers. And 3 officers were down. Suspect, they believe, made it out of the residence, possibly made it back into the residence. So it's unclear exactly where he is, if they believe that this is where he is, or if they've gotten eyes on him. That we don't know, because we are awaiting more official information from the LAPD. We showed you that those microphones were set up at the hospital, where we hope to get more information, but officers so far have not walked up to those microphones that we're looking at to provide us with the latest information.
Right, so it is a night, it's a worrisome night for Angelenos, as we wonder how these officers are doing. And as you said, waiting word from official LAPD to come out and talk to the media. I am thinking of everybody affected by this in that neighborhood right there. And you think, too, as you said, Alex, the scary job of law enforcement. We know narcotics, a very big problem. We think of the fentanyl crisis. We think of the gangs involved with the drug trade. Big issue in our city as well. So an important job that these officers were doing indeed. You see that robot there trying to perhaps give us some more information as to the status of this suspect who fired on 3 officers, which lets you know this suspect is armed, is dangerous if he is still alive, which we can only assume so at this point in time. But if you're willing to shoot officers and you are not willing to surrender, what other steps would you take? Would you harm an innocent civilian? Would you take somebody hostage? Would you shoot a neighbor? I mean, you have to, police have to take all that into account.
Some new information. Our sources at the hospital are telling us about the condition of the officers. That one of the officers was apparently shot in the arm, another shot in the vest, and some shrapnel ended up in the abdomen of that officer, and another officer shot at the elbow. So that is what at least our sources at the hospital are telling us. That's not been officially confirmed or officially reported, but that could be the information that we get once the LAPD officially does do a briefing.
And you know, we often say in the media, the officers are alive, they're going to be okay, but the wounds that you can suffer from a gunshot can be extensive. We need our arms. Yes, you know, I have a friend who was an officer who was shot in the arm and was off duty for an entire year with a cast and an arm brace, and still has fragments of the bullet, this female officer, in her elbow, in her arm, and pins in her arm to this day. So because we say they're going to be okay oftentimes, it could be a long journey of recovery.
Yeah, and if you're shot in the arm or have shrapnel in your abdomen, I mean, that's not a minor scratch either. I mean, that's something that you have to recover from. all that being said, their families are still, probably could not be more grateful at the thought of having them as compared to the other alternative, which we have unfortunately covered too often together as well. So it looks like, is there a second robot now moving in? It looks like that we're looking now at a second robot moving in. So Rick Dicker, tonight we're kind of going to get a look at all of the, I don't want to say toys, but all of the different options that SWAT has in a situation like this.
And it's all to get all that intel that they can gather without putting officers in harm's way. And this one, a slightly modified one compared to the one with you could see the light. All of them have cameras on them. Some of them have the ability to have like that X-ray vision, much like when you put your suitcase through TSA, they can see what's inside of it. All of those tools on board, claws, hands, handles to pick things up, to shake them, to determine if whatever that is safe. I've seen them use this with suspected pipe bombs or with suitcases that have been left behind. But in this situation, they're looking inside a place where they believe that this suspect who shot at officers, who injured at least 3 officers, is held up, to see if there's any movement, to see if there is still an individual that is still alive or is moving in there, so that they don't have to put officers in harm's way yet. They have the area contained. We're seeing the officers in a more relaxed state in and around this area. We believe that they've gotten everybody in terms of the residential community out of harm's way. And if you are just tuning in, this is in Lincoln Heights, just off the 5 and 10, the 5 and the dime, north of the 10 freeway, just east of the 5 in that Lincoln Heights neighborhood, just a few blocks away from where those officers were transported, County USC Medical Center, which you could see from that interchange of the 5 and the 10 freeway. This neighborhood of Lincoln Heights is just off of North Mission Road and North Broadway. It's on a small side street, Prince Street, and that's a narrow alley just off of Prince Street that we are focused on and have been focused on since this incident first occurred. A little bit more movement from those 2 robotic devices there, getting as close as they can. You can see the arm moving on the one, pushing in perhaps into that structure there. It looks like there's some sort of opening that device may be able to make its way in. You would think that if there was somebody in there with a weapon, with a gun, being that individual shot at officers already, they could shoot at those robotic devices as well. We have not seen that yet. We are seeing a brightly illuminated area there, though, from the night sun, from that bright light underneath the belly of that LAPD airship that's circling overhead just a few hundred feet above this still very active scene.
Rick, as we're watching those 2 robots, it is interesting to watch the one that is sitting there at the top there and the one that is kind of making some moves there. I don't know if they are different types of equipment or pieces of equipment or how they operate, but it's interesting to see that they did bring in those 2 different robots there. Hard to see from this picture to see if that robot actually got into the property, but it is advancing in some fashion. Perhaps there's some kind of tool on it that allows it to push on things, like you said.
Yeah, and it did look like there was some sort of opening, the different vantage points that we've seen from our helicopter shot from Skyfox, there was some sort of opening there that would allow maybe some sort of movement inside that structure there on the first floor where they believe that suspect is held up here. Both of them, though, pushed up against the one support beam there on this 2-story. It appears it's a multiple unit place. You can see bars on the windows of the upstairs unit there on the darker side of that structure. And then the apartment buildings there in the back. And we're moving a little bit here to just see what we can from Skyfox and pulling out there. That is Mission Road there, and that's Prince Street. And it appears that perhaps our helicopter, because it's been up for a while.
We're running out of fuel.
Yeah, we're running out of gas there. We got it. I can tell right away. So there we go. We're going off to either Burbank or Van Nuys to gas up. As
you know, you've been in the chopper for many years yourself, working on Good Day LA. Why don't we step away from this shot here of Southern California and go to Ed Lascos, who's on the ground there at the hospital standing.
Ed is at the crime scene. We've got another reporter at the hospital.
Gotcha.
Let's go back to the ground where Ed Laskos is standing by. Ed.
And actually, it's a very fluid situation here, so we have actually moved, and we're not at either of those two locations. We are on Valley Boulevard, which is several blocks away from that huge perimeter that LAPD has set up. The perimeter, as we've been talking about, along Broadway in that area, North Broadway. We are on Valley Boulevard, and it's the area now, the media staging area. Mike, you'll give you a look. Media from all over the city here right now rushing over. We're waiting for a press conference from LAPD, top officials from LAPD, to find out exactly the confirmed information of what happened with the shooting earlier, a few hours ago, and these three LAPD officers who were rushed to the emergency room. We know it's still probably going to be there, saying the briefing maybe about a half hour to perhaps even an hour away from this point. Everybody was thinking that maybe LAPD Chief Michael Moore would be here, but now we've been hearing that the chief himself is out of town, so they're trying to move around and get another commander or some high-ranking official to come over here and brief the media. But the details continue to move in. Before we left that perimeter over there on Broadway, which was all sealed off by LAPD, SWAT officers from all over the city arriving. They were mobilizing. A lot of this you've been seeing playing out live through Skyfox. They've also were using the loudspeakers on a lot of the choppers that were flying overhead, two LAPD choppers, telling folks inside those apartments, get inside, lock your door, stay away from the windows. They were broadcasting that, if you will, over those loudspeakers on the two LAPD choppers that kept circling that perimeter over and over again. And as we came over here getting ready for the press conference, other LAPD officers are here. And of course, the big question that we're asking, because we're all in this together, is how are the fellas? How are the officers? Or what are you hearing from County USC about their conditions? And the word here on the street from the other rank and file officers, LAPD officers, is our guys are okay. They're stable. They're stable, and there seems to be a breath of relief when they're hearing that information. So that's the word that at least the officers are getting. We've been hearing that as well from the hospital. So that's a bit of the good news here. But certainly it's an all-out manhunt to try to get that gunman in custody. Evidently, it was some type of drug situation with narco agents earlier, officers that went down. They brought in canine officers. Y'all have been talking about it through the last couple of hours. They had him in his house, apparently, the suspect. They used some non-lethal rounds, even fired some tear gas in there, and all of a sudden, as some of the reports, unconfirmed reports, are there's gunfire inside that residence, and then the sound you never want to hear on a police radio, officers down, need help. And then, of course, we find out 3 officers hit by gunfire, at least one of them canine officer. And again, unofficially, we're hearing from County USC, and I take a breath because they're saying they are in stable condition. So anyway, to recap here, we're still waiting for the official briefing from LAPD to find out exactly the exact details about how this went down over the last couple of hours. That briefing, though, still maybe a good hour to 45 minutes away, I'm told. Back to you.
All right, Ed, thank you. We will stand by, of course, for that news conference. Of course, Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock will have the full update. Right now, we are watching the scene here as we hear this word of 3 officers shot, LAPD. This is the scene of the hospital there. You can see other agencies there responding, as often is the case when you have law enforcement and officers shot, and there's a response from other agencies that work with the LAPD. Alex, you had an update from our sources there on what we are hearing about the condition of the officers. Do you want to go over that again?
Right. So the last update that we had, again, this is sources at the hospital, not confirmed by either the LA County Sheriff or the LAPD we're looking at there. One of the officers shot in the arm. Another officer shot in the vest with shrapnel in the abdomen. And then the other officer shot in the elbow. It'll be interesting to hear more about their specific condition when we get an official briefing, which we're also hoping to get. Don't know if they will also speak at the hospital, if they'll all do it where Ed's location is. You can see, though, LA County Sheriff helping out there at the hospital.
Reminded that there is a citywide tactical alert, which means officers are staying on duty here as we deal with the situation. Suspect barricaded. No word on the suspect or the status. There's been no movement by this suspect. You know, sometimes we will have a news conference at the hospital. Sometimes we will hear from the doctors. Right now, we are still waiting to hear from LAPD itself. As we learned from our reporter, Ed Laskos, that the chief is out of town, so standing by to see who will speak for the department as we await official word from this incident and shooting that happened earlier this evening around, you said, 6:30-ish,
Somewhere around there, yes.
Okay, and there you are looking live at the scene. All the neighbors there are asked to shelter in place. That is tape or video that we had earlier of the incident, the scene there. Imagine all the neighbors in that area who now can't get into their homes, can't leave their homes, waiting for this to come to an end safely in their neighborhood.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night in that neighborhood, and you also got to imagine, Christine, just how loud it is in that neighborhood with all the helicopters overhead, with the police sirens, with everything else. You know, it's not going to be an easy night to sleep anytime soon if you live near Lincoln Heights tonight.
Right. You know, we had those robots that went in to perhaps provide a little bit more information for the LAPD as to what they're dealing with when it comes to this suspect. Obviously, if we're hearing this is the suspect's home, police can get a lot of intel as to who lives there and who this person might be. Are they in connection with a relative who might be able to give some information? And you were saying this was a narcotics suspect in an alley who then retreated to their home.
That's what sources are telling us so far. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see who briefs. It'll be interesting to see if we see the mayor of Los Angeles at one of these as well. We have not seen or heard from her or her account so far tonight.
And I'm wondering, have we had Mayor Bass at a police incident as mayor?
Not of this extent that I can think of.
Newly elected mayor.
In a prime time sort of situation like this.
Yeah, newly elected mayor, longtime Angelino, former member of Congress. She knows the area well, knows the city well, but obviously operating in a different capacity. And this is her city.
And the author of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which she passed through the House twice, you know, was one of the sort of experts in the House on the issue of police reform. And, you know, has had a complicated relationship with some in police, but it would be interesting to see what she says or maybe doesn't say tonight.
Movement there by the robot, Rick Dickert.
This was, again, a video from earlier, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially it's a status quo situation where they are just, that was the earlier incident where they really pushed that one initial robotic device up against that beam. Again, all they're trying to do is use those robotic devices to try to see anything they can, any type of information they can garner, they can gather of what's happening inside where they believe that individual is held up. Upper left corner, County USC Medical Center, just a few blocks away, a very short RA ride, ambulance ride from where this incident occurred, from where we believe that those 3 officers were hit and taken to that hospital. This Lincoln Heights neighborhood, again, it's a community of the city of Los Angeles. They have the blue street signs there. They have the Los Angeles mailing address. We call these different enclaves different names, and Lincoln Heights is one of the original neighborhoods of Los Angeles, old Los Angeles, just a bit to the east and north of downtown Los Angeles. And this, what we're looking at down below right now, is a small alleyway off of Prince Street, just north of the 10 freeway, just to the east of the 5, near the 5 and Dime, as we call it, as we cover traffic from Skyfox every morning. And that is where County USC Medical Center is located. This scene is just slightly north and slightly east of County USC Medical Center, just off of the main streets, which are Mission Road and Broadway. Broadway running east-west, Mission more of a north-south road, kind of a diagonal road there, and Prince is a small little cutoff street from Broadway, winding around and then turning into Duke Road, and it's the alley just off of Prince Street where this is all unfolding.
You know, thank you for painting that picture of Lincoln Heights, because many people, you know, it's a very big community, Southern California, with a lot of different cities and a lot of different counties, and not everybody knows where Lincoln Heights is. You're exactly right. East LA, downtown LA-ish. I was just there a couple months ago for a story at the Puck Excel Academy, a great charter school. They had a great program where a teacher was honored with a big grant for her works in the community. It's working class families. Mm-hmm. It's modest families, modest people. I looked up the best taco shop there and wanted to go to one of the Mexican restaurants that was there in town to check that out and support that business. And it's just a very loving business owner right there as we think of that community of Lincoln Heights.
Yep.
You've covered many stories there yourself,
Many
I'm
stories
sure.
in Lincoln Heights over the years, and the people are always kind. But it is a community with a lot of poverty. It's a community with a lot of density. And you're seeing both of those things on display right now. When you look at some of the challenges now for officers on these tight, not particularly well-maintained streets, and in trying to get into some of these residences.
And again, what we're seeing in the larger box there off to the right and lower right, that's earlier Skyfox footage in that our helicopter ran out of gas. We have about 2.5 hours of gas, Alex and Christine, before we have to turn around and go fill up, typically either at Burbank or at Van Nuys, where Skyfox is based there. It's a quick turnaround, and then we arrive back on scene and provide those aerial shots. But we are in a holding pattern, so to speak. We have no updates on the ground for any breaking situation from what has occurred that we have not already seen. SWAT's on scene. They've surrounded the area. The perimeter's been set up. The line around the area, as we call it. We believe they've gotten everybody out of harm's way that they believe could be in harm's way. That alleyway is blocked by 2 SWAT units. SWAT, again, the acronym for Special Weapons and Tactics. Highly trained officers that know exactly how to deal with situations like this. Armored vehicles, armored officers to protect them as they move into a very dangerous and fluid situation. And this situation is unfolding in Lincoln Heights.
So the chief of police, Michael Moore, who we believe, I guess, is out of town, tweeted that he is following closely tonight's violent encounter, resulting in 3 officers being shot. Reports from hospital have all 3 in stable condition. Ongoing tactical scene with outstanding gunmen. So that is the latest official information from the LAPD and the LAPD chief.
So for people who are wondering about the status of the officers, the 3 who were shot, to hear from the chief himself that they are in stable condition is a little bit reassuring there. We are looking at a scene of the hospital right there. No word from law enforcement officially yet. No one from the hospital speaking yet. You can see assistance there by the Sheriff's Department backing up LAPD in covering this incident here. But hearing from the chief has got to be a little bit reassuring to other members of the department, family members. This is obviously your greatest worry if you're law enforcement family. And again, we are waiting for a news conference this evening to hear more from official word from the LAPD, and we're standing by for that.
Although that, of course, gives you a preview of some of what we expect to hear from that potential news conference. So you see the media is now gathered at the hospital. The media is gathered where LAPD told the media to gather, which is nearby the scene, waiting that briefing. And then the SWAT officers are gathered at the scene itself, trying to do their thing and trying to get this suspect out of this residence and let everybody else go. I mean, they're waiting for, Rick, that sort of code 4, right? All clear, and we're not at that point yet.
No, absolutely not. We're still waiting for units on the ground to give us an update on what's happening at the scene.
So as we are watching this here, we are, like I said, waiting word from law enforcement on what happened tonight. Alex, did you get a sense from the coverage that you were on with earlier that the officers were in uniform or plain clothes?
Don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because with narcotics, a lot of times they are plain clothed. If they were scouting the area out and made a move, or if they just...
But the fact, though, that according to that, what sources told us that they engaged multiple times, identified themselves, had a police dog there, so that person would at least be likely in uniform, put the gas out there. If all that is true, this person knew what they were doing in shooting at law enforcement.
So you're saying a lot played out before the shots were fired by that suspect?
That is what the sources are telling us so far. Still waiting to get that information officially confirmed, and not clear if they're going to go that much detail when they speak. Obviously, what Michael Moore just put out is important information, but not very detailed information.
And they might also want to have more information on their suspect before they say a whole heck of a lot tonight.
Right.
And we do believe the suspect went into his own home. That's the word that we have unofficially here as we await more information. So they might have good intel on who this suspect is. They might know the person's name. Do they have a criminal history? Waiting to see the status of the suspect. There's been no movement, no action, and we've just had those robots there at the suspect's home there.
And this appears to be obviously the emergency entrance and exit point at County USC Medical Center, as we see individuals who are being treated being wheeled up to the hospital, the ambulances coming and going, the RAs. And of course, those are all sheriff's deputies. Those are sheriff's units that are standing by at County USC Medical Center, being that this is a county medical facility here. But obviously, LAPD, as you can see, those LAPD officers there on scene as well. A multi-agency turnout for this. When officers are reported down, officers need help. That is protocol. And that's what we're seeing here with these pictures.
Rick, one of the women officers we just saw is Captain Kelly Muniz, and she is with LAPD Press Relations. Obviously, she is there getting more information from the hospital location. She is often one that will give the news conferences, but she is also a go-to often for the media. So to see that person right there, that is the person we often hear from as we stand by and await more information from the LAPD. I would guess getting an update on the status of the officers who are there at the hospital.
Yeah, and we are hearing from our photographer on the ground that the press conference there is expected to begin pretty soon at the hospital. So that's what they're being told on the ground there. We shall see. We've all been in a sort of holding pattern for much of the last hour, desperate for more information. That most important information, though, the chief confirming what we had heard earlier tonight, that the suspects, or the officers who were shot, are all in stable condition and expected to survive. That is the best and most important news that we've heard so far tonight.
So there you see the media, Fox 11 as well, ready to hear from the LAPD when they are ready to give us an update and give you some more information as to what happened. We can only guess that at the hospital there are the family members of those officers with those officers. We haven't heard anything about people going into any kind of surgery or what kind of medical care they're getting at this moment in time. We can only wonder about their injuries. The chief, of course, saying they're in stable condition. And word has been said that they are non-life-threatening injuries. No injury is ever good for anybody, especially an officer, but non-life-threatening is certainly a little bit more reassuring.
Indeed. So we have been on the air now for several hours straight now. We are going to take a break from this version of our coverage. We will come back on to our digital properties when that press conference begins, maybe in 20 minutes or so. We, of course, will have complete coverage on all of this stuff tonight on the Fox 11 News at 10. We have Ed Lascos, Coco McAvoy, and Gina Silva all on scene covering various aspects of this. And so we hope to have a lot more information when you join you on TV and here in our digital space once again at 10 o'clock tonight.
All right, so we're going to sign off here.
We're going to sign
busy. We're thrilled. We're more than happy. This happened in City 14 in Lincoln Heights, that the suspect has been apprehended. Thank God that the 3 officers are out of danger. And once again, I want to thank the men and women of LAPD, especially Mayor Karen Bass, for her strong leadership, for being here today with our officers. Thank you very much.
Mayor Bass, I missed the very beginning. I don't know if you already sent a message to the families and also to, their colleagues. What would be your message to the LAPD and to the families that are...
Well, I did speak with 2 of the officers. I haven't had an opportunity to speak with the families yet, but our crisis response team is here to provide the families with whatever support that they need. But my message to them is that we stand with them, is that our prayers, our hearts go out to them for their speedy recovery and also for the trauma that their families are facing right now. And we know that officers every day, when they go to work, that their families are left in fear, hoping that they won't get the phone call that these 3 families got tonight.
Mayor, how do they seem to be doing emotionally, their families tonight?
Oh, the 2 officers that I talked to are strong. Strong. The questions that they asked me was about their colleagues that were still out there looking for the suspect. So, like you would expect, they weren't concerned about themselves. They were concerned about their colleagues that they knew were still out in the field.
It must have been something to see you come in and talk to them about to see their coming to the room and smoking. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that it was just important for me to be here. This is a place that's familiar to me. I used to work here in the emergency room in trauma. And so to go back to the emergency room now to try to bring comfort and support to officers was something that was very important and meaningful to me. Thank you. Thank you.
I could provide a Spanish piece if you're ready. Do you do wish in Spanish?